Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I am joined by my two co-hosts, Michael Hall and Michael Reed. But we are joined by returning guest, Mitch Tischler of NBC Sports Washington. Happy belated birthday, Mr. Tischler. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks, boys. Good to be here.
I hope you had a great birthday, and we are going to recap last night's first preseason matchup for the Washington football team versus the New England Patriots. So, without a doubt, we have to start this off the right way, Mitch. I know that you want to go with big men, but we're going to talk one big man, but it's about his big beard. Ryan Fitzpatrick, how did you think he did last night?
I don't think there was much more you could have asked from Ryan Fitzpatrick in the first-team offense. I think you would have liked to have seen him get in the end zone, but had Adam Humphries not slipped on that third down play, they would have had a first down at about the 25-yard line and would have been on their way in to score. He was great. He was measured. He was on point. He showed a clear understanding of the offense. He really ran things like a seasoned grizzled field general, and I think that's exactly what you want to see. You love seeing how much he spread the ball around. He had Terry McLaurin for a couple 10-plus yard plays. He had the nice long pass to Logan Thomas. What was impressive
so
about that
beautiful.
was he put it in the spot that only Logan could go get it.
That was
a
dime.
beautiful throw.
Yeah.
You saw on third down, he went to his old friend Adam Humphries 2 times. Obviously, we talked about the slip. The other one, nice catch for a first down. He spread the ball around. He did everything you want to see out of him.
Right, yeah, and unlike Kyle, I'm going to talk about the big boys up front. Right tackle Sam Cosmi, PFF grade, gave him a 84.4 grade, second highest rookie of that game of the weekend so far. How do you think he did, in your opinion, and do you think he can be the right tackle of the future?
I mean, I think he is the right tackle of the future. It's hard to say that after one preseason game, but damn, did he look good. I mean, after 2 weeks of getting beat up by the local media and by Chase Young and by Montez Sweat, he walked out there and he walked the walk. He showed who he was. We know that he's a road grader. We know that he's a dude that gets up for games, and we talk about Taylor Heineke being a gamer. I expected Sam Cosmi to do the same thing. The thing that was most impressive to me was the way that he handled the New England defense. They ran a lot of tackle unders. They ran a lot of stunts. They ran a lot of blitzes his way, and he handled them with ease. He and Brandon Sheriff looked like they'd been working together for years over there. And I don't know that we're going to see this in the regular season all that often, but Ron Rivera and Scott Turner left him out on an island there on the right side. They didn't give him a lot of help. There weren't running backs over there chipping. There weren't tight ends giving a punch over there. They let him sink or swim, and he swam like a fish. He looked great out there. I was super excited to see it. I think that any question about whether he deserved the draft pick that he had or his struggles during training camp, out the window. I'm ready to set it, forget it, and keep on moving.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. So speaking of rookies, Jamin Davis, he played deep into the second quarter. What was your analysis of him? I know some people have been very hard on him, and it took him some time, but I think overall he played decent. How did you feel about Jamin Davis?
I think decent is a perfect example of it. I loved what Ron Rivera did with these rookies. For the most part, they played deep into the second quarter, get them playing experience. They're going to have, the 2 weeks after that third preseason game to recover and get back. It's basically a extended bye week. So let's get those guys some reps. To that point, I mean, even keeping Fitzpatrick and Terry McLaurin out there as long as he did, they're going to have some time to recover. So I liked it. Jamin Davis played well on defense. It was his first game, and he is being asked to be the middle linebacker and calling plays, and he's done that all training camp. But let's not forget that he's a rookie. It's going to take some time. He's thinking a little too much. He's not acting quite as instinctively as he will. What I loved seeing was on a couple of those pass plays where they tried to shoot those tight ends up the middle. You saw his speed. You saw how quick he can be and how good he can be in coverage. And I think with the run game and some of those screen passes and plays over the middle, once he starts getting more comfortable, I think you're going to see him make a lot more plays.
Yeah.
And overall, Mitch, how do you think that the offense performed? Because on third down, they had 60%, 12 of 20, but the New England Patriots were held to being on 3 for 8 or 3 for 12 for a 30%. So how do you think that the offense did going against that defense?
I mean, if you're comparing it to the offenses that we've seen since Kirk Cousins left, they passed the test with flying colors. I mean, you saw the offense move, and you wanted to see the first team offense get in the end zone. You probably wanted to see Heineke get in the end zone himself or the pass or whatever. But I think that you can be enthusiastic and you can be excited about what you saw out there. It is the first preseason game. That's not the end all be all. I think we talked about. I think last time I was here, we talked about kind of what would be a successful season. Last year, it was make the playoffs. This year, it's won a playoff game. Let's shrink that down into the microcosm of the preseason. I want the first preseason game to see the offense move the ball a little bit. Second preseason game, I want to see touchdowns. Yeah. We'll see that hopefully Friday night against Cincinnati and see what happens there. But you can't get too bogged down in total points scored. I think you got to look at kind of the mechanism, how things played out on the field, and you saw Taylor Heineke and Ryan Fitzpatrick move the ball pretty well up and down the field.
Yeah, Taylor Heineke, at the end of that first half, Washington was 6 for 8 on third down. So the first and second string quarterbacks did really well.
Dude's a gamer.
Yeah, he's a gamer, and I think you saw, Taylor Heineke struggled in training camp. I think everyone has heard that and seen that from all the reports that there were. And, our thoughts were like, maybe he's a guy that doesn't show up in practice, is just a guy that plays well in games. And we saw it last year in the playoffs, and I think we saw it last night against New England. And he's the perfect counterpoint to Ryan Fitzpatrick. Yeah. You have all of the measuredness of Ryan Fitzpatrick, all the senior leadership, veteran leadership, and then you have Tyler Heineke, who's a little more frenetic, a little more manic, but still moves the ball up and down the field. You're going to get a couple of those plays where he throws off his back foot into double coverage, and he makes that throw against the first team defense. Probably an interception, probably not two second, third stringers that are going to collide midair and let the ball fall to the ground. However, you also have, the scrambles on the third down where he's able to wrap around and get the first down. You have a couple of the, off script plays that he makes. It was a good showing for him. It was a good showing for Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I think you saw why Fitz is the starter and why Heineke is the backup. But you got to feel a lot more confident in what you have as a backup now that we've seen it more than just that one game against Tampa last year.
Yeah, exactly. 100% agree. And flipping to the other side of the ball, obviously Chase Young coming around the edge on third down, looking like mid-season form right now already in the first preseason game. You have Montez Sweat opposite him. A lot of talk has been about who's going to be the third guy behind them, that kind of the depth behind them. Do you think that Bradley Williams can kind of step in and be that kind of Brian Kerrigan role where he steps in third down situational kind of situations?
I mean, if he is, that's a steal at the end of the draft. William Bradley King is a guy who I believe has all the athletic tools to be successful. I think it's just going to take him a little bit of time to get there. I don't know that he's somebody that's going to be able to step in this year and play that role. I think that role is going to be James Smith-Williams. They love the kid out of that 7th rounder out of NC State last year on special teams. They raved about his speed, his athleticism, his use of hands, and that's exactly what you need as an outside pass rusher. I think you're going to see him step up and be that number 3 guy. And then also you have Casey Tuhill, who's been battling a little bit of an injury. He didn't play last night, but I think he's going to be another solid guy. And, we talk about Chase Young and Montez Sweat all the time. They're pretty, there's not a whole lot of depth behind the two of those guys. So You're going to need James Smith-Williams. You're going to need Casey Tuhill, and then probably Shaka Toney and William Bradley King are either going to be back end of the roster or both practice squad guys. But those are two guys that can develop into it. I think Shaka Toney has a little more experience. He's a little more moxie or veteran understanding as kind of a guy who's played 4 years in college. And I think that he might be able to step in and play a little bit more this year. But I think that William Bradley King has the higher ceiling with his athleticism. So I think really that third guy, James Smith-Williams, is a name that Washington football team fans should get to know a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. So somebody else who completely balled out last night, I think we can all agree, Jaret Patterson. Jaret Patterson did it all. He caught the ball. He ran the ball very well as well. Also, Andrew Mazard next week, he's gonna get a chance to return some kicks. What were your impressions of him, and do you think he makes this team?
Yeah, I mean, leading up to the game, we talked about how I talked about how I thought he was going to be kind of the player that Washington football team fans fell in love with during the preseason. There's always that one guy that everyone falls in love with and loves, and has a good preseason, but might not really be a regular season player. Scratch that. One preseason game, you can be excited about it. He led the team in rushing, he led the team in receiving, and the fact that immediately after the game, Ron Rivera is talking about getting him reps at punt and kick return tells you all you need to know. The coaches were extremely impressed with him. If he can prove to be that punt or kick returner, then that's a real path to making this roster. And if he has 2 more preseason games that mimic what we saw against New England, they won't be able to get him to the practice squad because someone else will claim him. So he really made he took a huge step forward, and he's going to really challenge Peyton Barber for that number 3 running back spot. I don't know that they can afford to keep 4 running backs, but he's going to definitely challenge for that 3. And if he can be that kick and punt returner, he might force them to keep 4 RBs.
Yeah, one positional group that actually did pretty well as a whole was a tight end group. And I want to ask you, that tight end 2 spot, it looks like it's up in the air right now. Hemingway, I guess you could say, was at the end of last week, was kind of favored as that tight end 2, and he had a horrible game blocking and catching as a receiver. So who were you most impressed by from those tight ends last night? Sammis Reyes got 2 catches for 25 yards. John Bates had that great 3rd down catch that moved the chains from Taylor Heineke. And then Ricky Seals-Jones had a sighting. So my question to you, Mitch, is who was the most impressive for you at tight end? And is there a possibility that they could keep 4 tight ends?
No, there's not. They'll keep 3 tight ends. Tamarick Hemingway had a much better camp than any of the other tight ends, and we kind of thought that he was going to kind of take a step forward and be that tight end too. That didn't happen last night. Sammis Reyes stepped up and played much better in the game than we ever saw him play in training camp. So, we've been talking about gamers all day. He might just be a gamer, and he had those 2 catches. Both were kind of bobbly catches and not that clean. So I don't know that I was that impressed necessarily with that. But for a guy who's never played, that was his first professional football game, football game ever, forget professional. First time he's really put on pads against anybody else. He was physical in the run game.
Yeah,
there was a run where he blocked down and collapsed the entire left side,
washed him all the
right
way down,
side of the New England D line.
And when he trucked the safety.
Yeah, I mean, those were things that we didn't think we were going to see because, when you put a basketball player in pads for the first time and he's taking hits from, somebody who's not friendly fire, you kind of think that he might, turtle a little bit. And he most certainly did not turtle. He peacocked his way out there, and he looked really, really good. So, we thought that Sammis Reyes might be a practice squatter or might be somebody with that knee injury early in camp that maybe they tried to put on a PUP list to start the season to kind of hide him a little bit. But he's a guy that stepped up and played well. John Bates also. He showed the phicality that, that we knew that we were going to see out of him. That was a nice catch right over the middle there for that first down. And, I don't know that he's going to be the most reliable player in the passing game, but when you have your quote-unquote blocking tight end able to kind of sneak behind a linebacker and in front of a safety and make a nice hands catch like he did, that's a huge asset to your team. So, I think Bates and Logan Thomas are clearly on the team. I don't know that Bates is necessarily going to be the 2, but he'll be on this roster. The question is going to be who that 3rd guy is, and that's going to be Tamarick Hemingway. That's going to be
Ricky Seals-Jones.
Yeah, I think Ricky Seals-Jones really might be on the outside looking in. That drop in the end zone
that was
really
a PI, though. If you look at it closely.
That was a pass interference.
Still, that was a perfectly placed ball by Taylor.
But the defender grabbed his left arm.
Yeah.
Like you say the same thing about that Anthony Gandy Golden 2-point conversion.
Right.
When you're trying to make a roster, you got to make plays.
Yeah, you got to make those plays.
Coaches, players, fans don't want to hear excuses.
Especially if he's missed time already.
Different things. Right. You got to make those plays. You got to stand out. So,
granted,
I think it's going to be a Sammis Reyes, Tamarick Hemingway battle, and see where things lie.
All right, I completely butchered that last question. I'm looking back at my notes. I'm like, well, I don't know what I was reading, but I'm going to try to bounce back. And speaking of bounce back, everyone kind of expected Dustin Hopkins to have a bounce back year coming into this year. It looked like last night he's kind of in his head. He's missed 2 field goals. I know Coach Rivera came out and said that they're not going to bring in competition. They're going to get the three man, the punter, the snapper, or the kicker, snapper, and the holder, and kind of sync. Do you think that they should bring in competition? And do you think they'll bring in competition eventually, or do you see this being Hopkins' spot for good?
Well, it's certainly not his spot for good. Coming into the season, he was on the roster. There was not really too many questions. But when you go out and go 0 for 2, and the opposing team's backup kicker goes 3 for 3, including a 50-yarder that would have cleared it for another 10 yards, it starts putting you a little bit on thin ice. I think, Ron Rivera up there at the podium last night, and I guess again today, that was almost kind of one of those dreaded votes of confidence. It was, hey, it's not all Dustin Hopkins' fault, but at the end of the day, it is his leg, his foot, his ball that's sailing wide right, wide left, and things got to get better. So I don't think they're ready to bring in competition yet. 5 to 8, I guess a week from today, they have the game against Cincinnati. He must be better in that game. And honestly, any missed kick there is going to open the door that much further to bring in competition. The one thing that I always say in favor of Dustin Hopkins that I don't think fans necessarily notice quite as much because there's not a stat for it, is he has a huge leg. He can kick it off through the back of the end zone every time if he wants. One of the things that Ben Kotwika and the Washington special teams coaches over the years have worked on were the directional kickoffs, and that's kind of pooching it up and having the ball land at the goal line or at the 3-yard line and making teams return it. And he does a really good job of doing that. Now, at the end of the day, you have to make your field goals. You got to put points on the board to keep the job. But let's not forget that he does do a really good job in kickoff, and he's really excelled there. But at the end of the day, it comes down to when you're putting up 3 points at 1 point, got to go between the uprights.
Yep. Right. Yeah. So last night we kind of witnessed Chase Young do Chase Young things, and it was so good to see right off the bat what he did to Cam Newton. So let's just make a prediction here. I just want to get your opinion on this. Let's put your Tischler Damas hat on for a second. Who has more sacks this season, Chase Young or Montez Sweat?
I'm going to say Chase Young. I think he's going to see a lot more of double teams and triple teams. I still think that he might eclipse Montez Sweat, but I think it's going to be a race. I loved what John Allen said in an interview with us the other day about who was going to do they have a competition when it comes to leading the team in sacks. He's like, all 4 of us get after it, and the quarterback gets to decide who's going to sack him. And to some extent, he's kind of right, because when you get Matt Ioannidis, Deron Payne, and or John Allen, whatever, 2 of those 3 getting a push up the middle, and then you got obviously the 2 studs on the outside. There's nowhere for a quarterback to go, so he kind of gets to decide. But I think that the front 4, including Matt Ioannidis, so that 5th guy, I think you're going to see 55 sacks out of that foursome, at 55 plus sacks. I mean, that number could be huge. I don't know that Montez Sweat talked about breaking the Vikings combined record of outside rushers. I don't think they're going to quite get there. I think that number was 38, if I'm not mistaken. But I think that Sweat and Young combined could easily get to 30. And that'd be pretty wild.
Well, hey, let's put it this way. All teams have to know now is that if they fumble the ball, fumble it near Deron Payne. They're going to be fine. They'll get it back.
He'll fall on it next time.
I know.
Now, to wrap this up, Mitch, I have a 2-part question for you. The first one being, between AGG, Kelvin Harmon, Isaiah Wright, and Dax Milne, who stood out the most to you last night?
Yikes. Honestly, I don't know that any of the 4 of them particularly showed bright. I don't think any of those 4 guys are ultimately going to be on this roster. I think Antonio Gandy-Golden probably has the best shot because he's a draft pick, recent draft pick. I think Dax Milne is destined for the practice squad, which is just fine for a 7th-round receiver. He's shown to be, savvy. He could be a good slot receiver at some point. He has some speed on the outside as well. But I think that final receiver spot is going to come down to the guys who can return kicks. And if that ends up being Jared Patterson, you might see them only really keep 5 guys. But I think Steven Sims and DeAndre Carter are the 2 that are really battling for that back end, that last roster spot at wide receiver. And Steven Sims looked good. DeAndre Carter had a nice punt return, but Steven Sims had a good kick return. Both played decently on offense. Steven Sims had that nice catch. It's gonna be a battle, and I don't think that through one preseason game you can say one guy has a definitive advantage over the other.
Okay. And then to wrap this up, we'll do rapid fire here, Mitch, because we're up against the bill here. But what are your grades for each of these positional groups? And what I'll do is I'll start knocking them down the list. I don't need a why, but just give me your grades for the night as a group. Total. Quarterbacks.
A.
Running backs.
A, because of Jared Patterson. You know exactly what you're getting out of Antonio Gibson. You know who Peyton Barber is. You know who J.D. McKissick is, even though he didn't play. When you get a undrafted free agent coming out there doing what he did, hard not to give him a high grade.
Absolutely. Wide receiver.
B.
Tight end.
B plus.
Yeah, I like that. O-line.
A.
Ooh, you know, Mitch is gonna give them an A. D-line.
Listen, I think that what I liked most about it was that Charles Leno Jr. is just like a forgotten man on the left side.
Right. Yeah.
But just like they did with Sam Cosmi on the right, with not giving him a lot of help, they didn't give Leno Jr. a lot of help, and they held up well. Fitz took 1 shot after he threw the ball. Other than that, they ran the ball. They opened some holes for Antonio Gibson. He had gaping holes to run through.
Okay.
Fitzpatrick had plenty of time to throw the ball. It's hard to give him anything but.
Right. That's a great point by you. What about the defensive line, including the edge rushers?
I mean, the Chase Young play in and of itself gives him a high grade for the game.
Right.
Linebackers.
Linebackers, I'll give a C plus. I think I wanted to see more from Jamin Davis, and I think we will. That doesn't mean just because he didn't have a great first preseason game, it doesn't mean that I'm low on him by any means. I think he'll get there. Just wasn't there tonight or last night.
Last secondary.
B minus.
Right.
B minus. I think you're being very nice there because I do think Derek Forrest ruined it for everybody.
Hey Mitch, can I ask? You're an expert. Can I ask you something really fast? What do you think about Sadiq Charles at right tackle?
I think he's going to play the most snaps of any player for the Washington football team over the three preseason games. I think for this season, you're going to see Sadiq Charles be kind of a backup tackle and a backup guard on this roster, kind of a little bit of both, a guy who can step in and help out if necessary at either position. Ultimately, I think that they're going to see if he can be a tackle, and if he can be a right tackle, then maybe you see Sam Cosmi next year move over to the left side, and there you have your bookend tackles. But ultimately, I believe in my heart of hearts that he's going to end up being the replacement for Brandon Sheriff at right guard. I think that they're going to work him out at guard, give him some reps, get him comfortable there, and if Brandon Sheriff ends up walking in free agency, which I think we kind of expect will happen, he'd be a great piece to slide in there.
Last stupid grade for you, but how you thought the coaching was last night, the way that they scheduled everything and structured.
I liked how much they played the guys. Okay. I know that there were other folks that thought they were going to be out there for the traditional 3 plays and be out of there, but I think you give all these guys time. The 3 preseason games kind of changes things around a little bit, and having that 2-week break before the season starts, I think August, whatever it was, 12th, that's the day to let them go run out there and run a couple extra plays. So I liked it a lot. I would give them a higher grade, but I hated Ron Rivera calling a timeout at the end of the game there when the Patriots were trying to run out the clock.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a preseason game. I know you kind of want to give your guys a shot to run the 2-minute drill one more time, but it's a preseason game. Let's get out of there.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. Bill was pissed about that. Mitch, I can't thank you enough, sir, and all of your work that you do for MVC Sports Washington. It's a pleasure to watch. If you could, before you go, just plug your Twitter handle and everywhere where everyone can find you.
Yeah, Twitter and Instagram, both the same, Mitch_Tischler, and of course, listen to the Washington Football Talk pod. Just put out a great post-game pod with a couple interviews with Landon Collins and your guy, Jared Patterson, who is awesome to talk to. Love the kid. I find myself rooting for him more and more, especially after talking to his family and hearing all the stories about them growing up as big Redskins fans. And his mom joked that Jared Patterson couldn't get his Washington football jersey on the wall of their house until he either won Rookie of the Year or made it to a Super Bowl. So mom's got high expectations, and Jared, through 1 preseason game is doing what he can to get there.
You're absolutely right. He led the team in receptions and rushing yards, which is ridiculous for him. Thank you so much, Mitch. I can't thank you enough for taking time to come on with us. It got a little bit over. Hope you have a great night, sir. Have a good weekend.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys, so much.
Of course, brother. We'll see you. All right, everybody. We just spoke with the Mitchell Tischler of NBC Sports Washington, and that was great.
Oh yeah, he always brings such good insight, especially on the O-line. It was very refreshing to hear that he gave them an A. They did play fantastic. I mean, they were awesome, but who knows O-line better than Mitch Tischler?
Yeah. I completely butchered that question. I literally had in my notes.
Would you call him Bradley Williams?
I literally had James Smith Williams in my notes, and I don't know what the hell I read when I was just going over it and I'm reading the question, but yeah,
it's those hyphenated last names. They throw you off.
Weird.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to say, very grateful that there were no major injuries last night in the first preseason game. We all know what happened last time that Washington played in New England in the preseason. That was during my bachelor party. That was a great weekend besides the news. But let's get into our fan questions, and we have a bunch of them, which are great, and I can't wait to get into them. The first one's going to be from our guy, Mike Puckett. He wants to know, which position group is on the hot seat, not including quarterback or defensive line? And I'll start with you, Reed.
Oh, which position is on the hot seat? Right now, I'm just going to say linebackers at the moment, just because of the way that they played. I know, look, Jamin Davis is inexperienced. He only started 1 year in college. He's got all the intangibles. Clearly, Ron and Jack Del Rio know what they're doing when they're working with a linebacker. They see it in him. It's going to happen for him. People should relax. But yeah, I don't think he played nearly up to the standards that he probably set for himself. So, and he's going to be the leader of that defense. So I think The linebackers right now, that's our weakest unit on defense. They need to still prove themselves a little bit.
Yeah, and for me, it's the wide receiver group.
Yeah.
I know that they have a lot of good ones, but the guys that are battling it out, just like Mitchell just said, they didn't really jump out at you. But I will say I was very impressed with Dax Milne, to be perfectly honest with you. The fact that he was good in the punt returns, had a great return for one of them, did better than Steven Sims, and the fact that he showed out later on in the game to get some catches, I think that he really did improve his stock a little bit. I thought that he was the best of those. But, yeah, if I'm going to say anyone, it's the wide receivers because they do need to show some more. Because Diami Brown, Terry McLaurin, they're and Adam Humphries, they are blowing the doors off everybody right now.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I'm going to go with Reed and say the linebackers just for the simple fact of, like he said, I don't think that Jamin Davis really played up to the standard that he set for himself. But, again, it's his first preseason game. He was 1-year starter at Kentucky, kind of burst on the scene, kind of out of nowhere, if you want to call it that. And I think Chase Young, I'm kind of paraphrasing it, told him before the game, just don't overthink things, don't think things, just play loose, play free. And it kind of looked like he was playing tense and kind of tightened up, kind of overthinking things. And anyone that knows football that knows that if you're on the field thinking, then you're probably sinking. So I think that going forward, he's going to get a little bit better. I know that John Bostic was still having trouble covering tight ends and running backs out of the backfield and down in the seams and stuff like that. Yeah, I know.
So Pro Football Focus, they gave him a 26.3 tackling grade last night.
And that was going to be my next point is the linebackers as a whole, just the tackling last night was kind of reminded me of like the mid-2000s teams where it was just like, are we watching a game of Madden? Like, why are there so many broken tackles going on?
Right.
But I think as a whole, the linebackers will be better going into week 1. I think they'll be better next week as well.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick a group, like I said, it's definitely the linebackers.
Yeah. You know it's bad when your PFF score is the same number as Clinton Porter score. So.
Yeah, and that was brutal. Derek Forrest, look, one of the things coming out was that he wasn't an open field tackler. I've said that many times, but he was a good cover safety. I'm not surprised to see Derek Forrest struggling in that aspect. I knew it was going to happen. But John Bostic, that is kind of a concern for me because he is considered the one guy who can call in off the bench and play Mike and for Jamin Davis. Lord forbid that situation come about. And if he's struggling to be able to tackle from the middle linebacker standpoint, that's going to be an issue.
And tackling and leadership is like the two things that he brings. Like he's a sure tackler and he's a leader and he knows defenses. So you don't keep him for his coverage ability. We know that.
And now let's move on to our next question from the Colonel himself. Thank you very much, Colonel. He wants to know, what are your overall impressions of the loss to the Patriots last night, the first preseason game, 22-13, Hall? What are your basic impressions of last night's game? How are you feeling about it?
Feeling kind of good. Coming out the game pretty good. I'm not worried about this overall score. I'm never really worried about the score in the preseason games. What I look for in the preseason games is, first of all, is everyone coming out the game healthy or at least healthy enough to continue playing forward, no major injuries. But is the offense getting out of the huddle quick? Are they moving the ball? Is there a bunch of 3-and-outs? Are they converting on third downs, which they did last night? First and second string did that. Is the defense making tackles, which they weren't really tackling in the open field. A lot of broken tackles, a lot of missed tackles. But, again, first preseason game, they can clean it up. But overall, if I had to give it a grade out of 10, I'm about an 8 as a whole, as this offense and this defense as a whole right now. And, again, special teams kind of threw me off a little bit with the Hopkins misses. But, again, that can all get cleaned up by week 1. Everything can obviously get a little bit better. But I would give it an 8 out of 10 as far as I guess that would be a B grade.
Yeah, look, my impressions of last night are great, and I want to preface that by saying, like, we knew what they could do against each other, right? We saw what happened at Friday Night Football, but we needed to see them actually go against another team that doesn't know their plays, that doesn't know what to expect. And with a basic kind of way of going about it, we saw the Ryan Fitzpatrick linking up with Terry McLaurin. That looked fantastic. Then Ryan Fitzpatrick throwing the behind-the-shoulder, back-shoulder throw to Logan Thomas on the sideline. Logan Thomas turning around perfectly for that football. I thought we learned a lot about this team. But secondly, and the most important, Chase Young on the second drive to hit that tug and rip, get around, and then hit Cam Newton to drop that ball, because the one thing that everyone's been saying about Chase Young last season was he was very good against the run, but he kind of disappeared at times in pass rushing, especially in that Tampa Bay game. And he was kind of hammered this offseason in his pass rushing technique. For him to do that in his second drive of the first preseason game against a solid, legitimate left tackle, I think is great for this football team. That means Chase Young took that step. And Chase Young taking that step means he's one step closer to being unstoppable, because he is a very short leash away from being unstoppable. The way that he's playing football right now, it's absolutely amazing. I will say the tackling I am kind of concerned about, Colonel, with how I saw it last night. I know everyone's going to look at the rushing yards and say, they gave up 179 yards rushing, but look, they gave up that 91-yard touchdown at the end of the game. If you take that away, they had 25 rushes for 88 yards, which is a 3.5 yards per attempt. So it's not like they really did all that great on the day. I will say 24 first downs to the Washington football team to New England 16. 17 of those were passing, which is great to hear with this offense. With everything that happened last season, with how inept the quarterback position was, hearing that they did better in that area is phenomenal. They had 80 plays to New England's 56. They absolutely killed it. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 7.3 average per attempt throw. Think about that. Last season, the highest they had, was like 5.6 or something. In his first preseason game, Ryan Fitzpatrick's coming in and averaging 7 yards per attempt and looked good while doing it. A lot of credit to him. And then Taylor Heineke talked about in his press conference a couple weeks ago, had trouble throwing to his left. That one play on the third down, on a second down, scrambles to his left, off his back foot, throws that ball behind Diami Brown, who catches it for a 5-6 yard gain. I thought that was huge for Taylor. I'm very, very impressed by this football team.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle, you literally just took everything I was about to say.
Sorry.
But no. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with all those. Chase Young was Chase Young. You gotta love that. You gotta be very, very, very impressed and excited for this offense after you saw what both Ryan Fitzpatrick and Taylor Heineke could do. The offensive line played great. But the wide receivers play good. Even I was impressed with Sammis Reyes. He had 2 catches. I know the one that he bobbled, but that one where he up the seam where he got bumped and still kept going and then caught it up the seam, trucked the safety. I was very pleased with that. Of course, Jarrett Patterson played fantastic.
Before you keep going, Colonel's next question was surprises and disappointments, because you were kind of going into that.
Okay. Yeah. So since you had everything on that, surprises and some disappointments. Let's see. Obviously, disappointments. I mean, I don't really want to be
Let's do one of each.
Okay, so I'll go with my surprises, and the surprises got to be obvious. I mean, Jarrett Patterson. What more can you say about him? I mean, the guy came out here. One of the things we were talking about when he was coming out was, can he do this? Can he do in the NFL what he did in Buffalo? Because that guy had some massive holes at Buffalo, and he didn't get touched until he was 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. He looked very good. Not only did he look good running the ball, but like you said, Kyle, he led the team in receiving as well, and he made that. Taylor Heineke made that fantastic play and the throw, and then he made a fantastic catch inside the 5 yard line, and it was just very impressive to see. So Jarrett Patterson obviously was my surprise of the game.
Did you already said your disappointment, right?
No, I mean Jamin Davis for me, but that's just because I set my expectations so high for him.
Okay,
you'll be fine.
But my surprise, I'll say Antonio Gibson. Because he was utilized early and often in the passing game, even when Taylor Heineke was in the game. He had 5 carries, 15 yards, 2 receptions for 14 yards, which we know last season he wasn't utilized in the passing game. It was one of the biggest question marks coming into this season, was really utilizing his strengths as a wide receiver going back to college, and seeing that in the first preseason game in the limited action he got, he did catch footballs out of the backfield and was a legit weapon. Got a first down, picked up 11 yards on one, which is great. So that from one surprise, that was Antonio Gibson for me. And then one disappointment, I'll say, is Tamark Hemingway. Getting blown up in those passing sets and blocking, and then leading to almost a sack, and then dropping those wide open balls. He really had a disappointing night, in my opinion.
Yeah, surprise for me was, even though he only had 1 catch, he still had a good kick return run, which that was kind of his downfall from last year. Reed's boy, Steven Sims Jr.
Hey, I'm turning the corner on him, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, we were at Richmond at training camp. You saw after practice, he was working on catching. He was at the
200 balls a day. He's catching
200 balls a day, exactly. So, and I know his thing last year was he wasn't healthy, and he's fully healthy this year. He's in good shape. Like you say, he's working on his craft after practice, which is always a good thing to see. So, and then for him to go up and mid route, go over top of his head, catch it over top of his head, for the 1 catch for 18 yards, really showed that he's been working on his hands. So that was my surprise, because I know a lot of people going into the season were really, really down on him, and most people thought he wasn't even going to make the team just because of all the wide receiver depth that we acquired over the offseason. So that was my surprise. And the obvious disappointment was Dustin Hopkins.
Yeah.
I know it's a new setup with a new snapper, even though it's the same holder, same kicker, same foot. I just think that if he gets out of his head and gets over what's going on, he got like the what do you call it, like the jeeps or the
jips, yeah.
The jip.
Yeah.
He's got
Or
the
the
jips
yips
right now.
or the yips.
The yips, yeah.
Yips.
He's got the yips right now, I feel like, and he's in his head too much. But I feel like once he gets out of his head a little bit and gets back to the kind of consistent Dustin Hopkins that we all kind of known and grown to kind of like and love, I think he'll be fine. But it's still a disappointment, and it's a small, slight concern because going into this season, we're going to have to put up points against a lot of the offenses we're playing. So we're going to have to get points whenever we can. So
Right.
Yeah,
And
you're-
real fast, another surprise, Sam Cosmi. And then I shouldn't have said Jamin Davis as my disappointment. I should have said the defense is tackling as a whole. It wasn't really
Yeah.
Jamin Davis.
That would make sense. I did want to give a lot of credit to offense and defense with the Washington football team. The 12 of 20 on third down for offense, that is incredible for them. That is what they're really going to need to use to be able to extend drives this season. And then the defense, keeping New England to 4 of 12 to 30%. That is fantastic, especially going against Cam Newton and Mac Jones, two pretty good guys at quarterback there, and they showed up.
And that was one thing I wanted to talk about when with the game. I was very impressed by Mac Jones. I know he played well during the training camp. That's all reports said, but he looked pretty good, man. And New England looks like they've got themselves one. So
yeah, he looks great. Him and Jacoby Myers. Ben Vallin talked about him on Tuesday. My goodness, did that guy light up our secondary?
Right.
I'm calling it now. Watch. After the Saints get out of this contract with Michael Thomas, it might not be this year, but next year, look for Michael Thomas to go to the Patriots. Him and Mac Jones are going to be deadly combination.
Oh, yeah.
That would make a lot of sense. Now, the Colonel's last question is, are we looking for a kicker? Hall.
Look, I'm going to go with what Coach Rivera said, and I'm going to say no. But like Mitch said, if he doesn't come out and perform against the Bengals at home Friday, right? Next Friday, I believe that, like he said, the door just be pushed that much more open for another guy to walk through it. So we'll see. As of right now, I'm going to say no. In my opinion, I would say yes, it need competition. But I'll go with what Coach says, and I'll say no.
Now, I agree with Coach, and I respect Coach, but I will say they do need to bring in competition, not to overtake Dustin Hopkins, but to light a fire under his ass and say, look, man, I have all the confidence in the world with you, but we need to bring in someone else just for competition. Coach talks about competition, positional breakdowns all the time, so why would kicker be any different? And I think that would be a healthy thing for them to do, would bring somebody in just for competition. I truly believe that Dustin Hopkins is going to win it out. Because there is some validity to the fact of saying, it's like a chain of events with the snap. The snap being too high, which makes a holder hold the ball too high, not getting it down quick enough. And then that forces Hopkins to hesitate, which makes him hit a bad ball because it's not in his normal fluid transition of the way that he moves. And I get it, but the fact being is you shouldn't have to hesitate, Hopkins. Trust way to get that ball down and hit it. At the end of the day, it comes down to Hopkins. Everyone needs to work together to get it done, but I do think they need to bring in competition just to light a fire under his ass, not to take his job.
Well, I'm right there with you, Kyle. I do believe Ron Rivera, and I do think that he wants to stick with Dustin Hopkins because he wants to see if he can get past this because he has been successful in the past. But I do think you almost have to bring in competition for him, like you said, to light a fire under him. And because if he doesn't perform, then if he doesn't perform up to expectations, you lose your job, man. So if somebody outperforms you, then that is what it is. But I think Rivera's going to stick to his guns with this for a little while.
Yeah,
but you're right. If Friday comes and he doesn't kick well,
I agree with you there. Now let's move on to our guy, Street Scores Rico, who has a great question for us, a player that I absolutely loved and I was going to talk about today. Does Torrey McTyler have an honest chance of making the team? Even with how many plays he's made since Friday night practice, does he have a real shot? Has he done enough to turn some heads and surpass a few guys above him on the depth chart? Reed.
I think, does he have a chance of making this team? Yes, because this coaching staff is all about competition. They're going to let the best players play it. He's been one of the best cornerbacks on this team.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing is Stroman and Danny Johnson do offer return ability, but I mean, look, if they go out there and all of a sudden Jarrett Patterson does well returning kicks and punts, or then they can keep another receiver, like say Steven Sims ends up making the team, or Adam Humphries, he will. But and they can also return kicks. Then you don't have a need for one of those guys. And McTyer's kind of outplayed them. I think McTyer's been fantastic. So yes, I think he can make this team. Will he? I don't know, but I think he might. He could.
Yeah, and it's funny because, remember Michael Haas asked us a question a couple weeks ago. He said, do you think this is the most deep team in the NFC East, I believe was his question. And I said no, but I think it is the most broad. And we kind of saw that last night with his team.
Right.
So where the backups in the second or third string, they're like very, very bad. It's when they come in, it's an issue, to be perfectly honest. The way everything is they should not be giving up a 91-yard rushing touchdown with a minute something left. There's something going on there, and there's a huge drop off in my personal opinion. I'm not trying to shoot anybody down, but that's the fact remaining. And I think Torrey McTyer has the ability to make this team, because that back end after Jimmy Moreland, you do kind of have question marks there.
Yeah.
And McTyer has kind of proven that he is a playmaker. He had a pass breakup yesterday in the end zone, which should have been a great pass by Mac Jones, and he was able to get a hand in there and knock it away. I think he does definitely solidify his chance behind Jimmy Moreland. I do.
Yeah, I'm kind of like split down the middle with both you guys. I definitely think that he has a chance to, and I definitely think that he can behind Jimmy Moreland. Just because, like you said, he's been like kind of the training camp and so far the preseason darling, him and Patterson, because they're like the standouts so far, like the unknown, like undrafted guys.
Yeah.
If he doesn't make the 53 roster, I definitely think he'll be a practice squad guy, and they might bring him up like eventually throughout the season due to injury, something like that. Maybe he plays his way up during the season and gets on the active roster. But I definitely think that they're not going to cut him. I will say that. I think he'll be a practice squad guy, or he'll be like the 53rd guy to get the squad, or the 52nd guy to make the squad.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. And obviously, if they don't keep him on the 53, I do think he'll be like number one on the practice squad.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, our next question is from big fan Tony Franchise, Tony with an I.
Yes,
he wants to know,
there you go.
what grade would you give to each quarterback? And Hall, I'll start with you.
Oh man, I'll start with Heineke. I'll give them both a B, honestly. I think that they both converted on third downs. Heineke moved to, obviously Heineke played more than Fitz, but they like I said, both converted on third downs. Fitz took more shots like down the field. Heineke was kind of like dinking and dunking, but again, like everyone said, he's more of a gamer. He was running around in the pocket. The highlight standout play for me was he's running around scrambling. He hits Jared Patterson kind of like in the corner by the sideline. Yep. So yeah, definitely I'll give him a B. But I love what Fitz did. Like I said, hooking up with Terry. He went to Terry often and a lot, and I love to see that. The nice back shoulder throw to Logan Thomas to throw him open.
That was so
right
great.
To the sideline. Great catch by Logan Thomas, obviously also. But yeah, I definitely think that Fitz kind of solidified his role in this offense as that, like I said, the field general. And I can't wait. It's going to be some explosive plays coming from this offense.
Yeah, with Fitz, I'll give him a B. I thought that he did a very good job. He was solid. Didn't try to do too much. He put the ball up there in the circumstances that were permitting, like with Logan Thomas. The DB wasn't staring at him. That one throw to Terry McLaurin was absolutely beautiful. He had to put that ball in a rope because the guy that was chasing Cam Sims, the DB, was right in front of Terry. And as soon as Terry caught that ball, that DB was turned around tackling him. So that ball had to be put on a rope on a certain spot for him to be able to catch it. I thought that was great by him, so a B. With Taylor, I'm giving a C. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I consistently saw him throwing off his back foot, rushing out of clean pockets and stuff, and just doing stuff that he didn't necessarily need to do. Like, it almost reminds you of a younger Ryan Fitzpatrick in a way, but you kind of need to do all the fundamentals, Taylor, to really elevate your game to next level, because he did have a bunch of passes last night that were behind wide receivers that I saw. Diami Brown was able to catch one of those, luckily, on that 1 second down, but he did consistently throw guys behind because he was throwing off his back foot, like that one pass to Jared Patterson that somehow Jared Patterson caught. And Jared Patterson caught all 4 balls that were thrown to him last night, by the way.
Yeah.
The dude is just amazing. He
Speaking of that pass, I don't even know how that even made it, because like it felt like the ball was like literally like one of those slow motion like movies where it's like
So I'll give Taylor a C just because there is a lot of more things he can work on, but I'm giving him a C because he was able to throw to his left a little bit. I thought that he showed some progress and actually looked pretty good. Him and Diami Brown, that one slant route. Dude, it's crazy because it's like the coaching staff keeps Diami Brown just for Taylor. I saw it on Friday night practice where Taylor came in. They brought Diami Brown with him. Last night, Taylor comes in. Diami Brown stays with him with the offensive line starting. So that was really cool to see. But Steven Montez, dude, I'm giving him a C-. I know he had a great 2-minute drive,
Yeah.
but before that, dude, he was so bad. You can't even get a great evaluation on Kelvin Harmon, on AGG, Dax Milne, and Isaiah Wright and these other guys because Montez is playing so poorly. This was one of the reasons why John Keim said they need Kyle Allen. Not because Kyle Allen is going to be the number 2 quarterback, but because situations like this, so you can actually get a good look at your players without having a liability at quarterback. That's why they need Kyle Allen.
Right. Yeah. So I'm going to give Fitzpatrick a B+. He could, because you saw some Fitzpatrick make some dimes, and look, this offense is going to look completely different than it did last year, and thank God. But you also saw Fitzpatrick make a throw or two where you're like, okay, that's the stuff that gets him in trouble. That I understand that now. But like that pass to Logan Thomas, I know I've said it twice already, but that was gorgeous. I haven't seen something like that from a Washington quarterback in a while, and that's sad. But so I'll go ahead. I'll give him. I think I said B. Yeah. But then Taylor Heineke, I'm going to go a little bit different than you, Kyle, because I know what you're saying and I completely understand with you. But I think compared to where he was in training camp and the things that you heard, all you did was hear bad things about him. And he came out and he made plays. Like, we know that this guy can make plays. He's a gamer. He moved around well. He has great pocket awareness. He got out of the pocket, made some throws. And you're right. He needs to start throwing to his left more. He did do it a little bit. But he struggled with his accuracy. One
thing he does need to do a little bit more of is throwing to his checkdowns. He does struggle with that a little bit.
Right. Yes. Yeah, you're 100% right. But like some of those throws, like that throw we talked about to Jared Patterson, that was gorgeous.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna give Heineke an A- just because of what we had been hearing all summer, and then what he came out and did. He played very solid. I mean. So, yeah, I'm excited about the quarterback position. Like you said, Montez, there's really not much to say. I mean, I'll go C- as well.
Yeah, agreed. Now, Tony's next question for us is regarding the NFC East. Do you have any concern with the Eagles possibly pulling the trigger on a Deshaun Watson trade, Reed?
So it really all depends on what they have to give up for him. If they're going to have to give up a lot, which I would imagine that they would, unless something bad comes out, like which in that case, I mean, you'd probably be out of the league or suspended or something anyway. But no, I'm not really that worried. I mean, look, it would suck to play Deshaun Watson twice a year, but at the same time, they're going to have to give up a lot to get him. I mean, they're going to have to give up. They could have 3 first-round picks this year. Carson Wentz might even play week 1, so there's a real chance that they could get 3 first-round picks this year, and they might have to give up some players. That's going to completely mortgage their future. But it would suck to see Devontae Smith and those guys being able to hook up with Deshaun Watson, but at the same time, that doesn't fix your defense. Their defense is they need to revamp it. They need those draft picks. It wouldn't really scare me, but it would suck to play Deshaun Watson twice a year.
It doesn't concern me at all, Scott. It doesn't concern me at all, Tony, because we've seen what Deshaun Watson has without anybody around him. He does very well, but the team kind of sucks. If you're shipping a bunch for a Philly to bring him there, I don't think they have a Super Bowl caliber roster. This isn't like Tom Brady hopping onto the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You're going onto the depleted roster without draft picks to be able to build yourself up, so you're going to be forced through free agency. And we all know that teams that try to build their team through free agency typically fall on their face. Reminiscent of the Eagles, the dream team back in the day that Vince Young labeled them as. So I'm not concerned with it at all. It would suck to play Deshaun Watson because I respect him to see him in Philly. But I'm not concerned at it in the long term now.
Yeah, I wouldn't be concerned in the short term just because, like you said, they'd have to give up a bunch of draft picks, probably all 3, because I'm going to assume Carson Wentz is going to play 75% of the snaps.
Yeah,
right.
So they have to give up all 3 of their first-round picks, maybe even a second-round pick in next year, the year after that draft. But either way, they give a bunch of picks, probably some players as well, some young players, some up-and-coming players. So I wouldn't be concerned in the short term, even though go into that season, they would have like $40+ million in cap space or to spend them in. So, but in the long term, maybe like 2-3 years down the line, when they can kind of build around Deshaun, they get some of those draft picks back. They get pieces and weapons around him other than Devontae Smith. And people forget about Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is a beast too. But
could be. He keeps supposedly having these breakout years, and it hasn't happened yet.
Right.
He keeps getting injured. But if he can stay healthy, he could definitely be a top 5 to 8 back in this league as well.
Yeah.
But short term, I wouldn't be that worried about it. Long term, maybe like 2-3 years down the line, when they put a little bit more pieces around him, if they did it, then I might be a little bit concerned. But again, with the defense that we have, obviously we're going to keep building and adding to this defense. Hopefully by then we'll have like a franchise quarterback, or at least a young quarterback we can like build around,
right? Yeah,
and kind of like compete with us. So So yeah, short term, yeah. Long term, we'll see.
Nah.
You're right. I'm right there with you. Long term, I feel like then it could be like because I forget how young he is because it seems like he's been around for so
You have
long.
to deal with Dak in his prime, Deshaun going into his prime.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a good point.
who cares about Daniel Jones? But yeah.
Yeah, right. Now our next question is from our boy Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi.
Oi.
He wants to know,
Oi.
would you rather have season tickets for life, indecent seats, or participate in light, non-strenuous training camp activities with the team every year? Hall.
Woo. Damn man, you pulling at the dream strings right here. Damn, that's really hard. I'd probably go season tickets, even though I would love to like work out and like be on the field with the team and like interact with the players. Shit would be tight as hell. But there's nothing like going to a game, especially when your team is good and they're playing well and like this
Getting to
feeling
see
of the
everybody.
stadium. Exactly. So as much as I would love to be on the field with the players and like doing drills and like showing off my mad skills, dog. It's like nah, but yeah, I'll go season tickets.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Season tickets all day. I've never owned season tickets. It's a dream of mine to be able to go to every Washington game. So season tickets without a doubt.
How long do you get the season tickets for?
Oh, life.
And this for life?
Yeah.
It is for okay.
Dang, I don't know.
Yeah. See, I'm somebody who I don't really like going to the games just because I've had so many negative experiences at FedEx, and I like watching it at TV more because I just get too pissed off at people around me or just are annoying. But I mean, hey, if we're gonna for life, yeah, I'll take season tickets all day. Being able to go to the new stadium that they're gonna build, that's gonna be state of the art. You know, when it comes out, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. And plus, Washington's gonna be good for the remainder of the time they're at FedEx, so I'll go there and cheer them on.
Right. Now, our last question from Scott Hartley is the dark horse to make the roster. His is David Bada.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, we talked about him earlier, but McTire, I think he really does have a chance to make this team, and I'm excited for him.
Honestly, dude, based on how he played last night, I think Sammis Reyes has a legitimate shot to make this team. I know everyone keeps poo-pooing 4 tight ends, but heavy sets were prevalent last season. They performed at their best last season with heavy sets. So having multiple of these tight ends, because the way Sammis Reyes has played, I don't think he'd be coming back here. If he got put on waivers, I think somebody would be scooping Sammis Reyes
100%.
up. So that's why I feel like they should keep 4 tight ends, meaning John Bates is the 2, Ricky Seals-Jones is the 3, and then having Sammis Reyes is the 4, and mismatching him because Sammis Reyes can play, dude. The whole thought was that he would probably look like a deer in headlights out there. He looked like he can play and can contribute right away. And Coach said it. He's the most physical blocker on this team. He thinks. Doesn't want to get ahead of himself, but he thinks. I'm right there with him. I think Sammis Reyes makes his team.
I think his athleticism alone is scary. He literally looked like an actual NFL player last night, in his jersey. I didn't expect that, and
because he has value on goal line. You look how many big guys you need on the goal line down there. Sammis Reyes being the most physical blocker, you need him there.
Yeah.
When he watched that, I think it was a safety or like the linebacker. I can't remember which one. When he watched him all the way, when he watched that safety down the right side of the line, I was just like,
oh yeah.
Like he looked like he's been like a 5-year vet, been doing it forever. So it's crazy. Right. But dark horse to make the roster. It's not really a dark horse because he balled out last night, but I know there was a lot of questions going into the season just because the running back situation. Obviously, you got AG and McKissick, and then Barber being that third guy. But I definitely think that, especially if they're going to use him in return game and put him back there, see if he can do that. I definitely think that Jared Patterson is pretty much going. If he has a good, pretty much similar game on Friday night, I think he's pretty much cemented his spot on this 53-man roster.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you guys remember pre-draft, we talked about running backs, and what was the one thing we all said? If they were going to bring in a running back in this draft, we wanted it to be somebody that could be a number 1 running back, somebody they could progress and grow with. And the fact that they didn't have to use a draft pick for it, and they got Jared Patterson, the way he looked last night, catching everything thrown his way, catching hard balls, being able to run through the middle, juking guys with a spin move, or that was Antonio Gibson, juking guys in line of scrimmage and stuff. He looked electric, and that notch checks every box.
Real fast, one more thing on Sammis Reyes. I just jogged my memory. Go back and watch the seam route that he catches, where he gets bumped in the middle of the route and still turns around, catches the ball, then trucks a safety. Tell me he does not look like Rob Gronk. That's not a Rob Gronkowski play. That's 100%. Every single thing about it is Gronk. I'm not saying he's Gronk, but just go watch it. The way he takes the first hit, the first check when he's running his route, keeps his head, turns his head around, and then just lowers his shoulder. He looks exactly like Gronk there, and it's so funny.
That's funny. You're right, 100% right with that. All right, everybody, I can't thank you enough for all of your questions. Streak Scores Rico, Tony Franchise, Scott Hartley, to the Colonel, Mike Puckett. Thank you so much, everybody, for your fan questions. Thank you to Mitch Tischler for joining us tonight. And make sure you guys check us out on Tuesday for our next episode. We have a great guest lined up for you. We're going to preview the game on Friday against the Cincinnati Bengals. All right, everybody, I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
And I am a disappointment to my father.
All right, everybody. We'll see you on Tuesday. Have a good weekend. Be safe. Washington football. Hey! Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched the BurgundyZone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!